Maharshi Satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang. I'm not a teacher or a guru. I'm just someone who loves this teaching and wants to share it with like-minded people. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, and this is the second session on Talk 54. Let me go to it on the slides. Here we are, and this continues a dialogue with a Pandit, a learned man who has studied Indian spirituality his whole life and still has questions. This session deals with two of them. The Pandit asks about practice. Thoughts get in the way and I can't get past them. And also, how to get rid of the I am the body idea. These are questions that we all have. Now, the first part of it, the Pandit remarked that thoughts are so persistent that the aham, the I, cannot be reached. The master said, the thought of Brahman helps to turn the mind away from other thoughts. Either some such practice is necessary, or association with sadhu should be made. The sadhu has already overcome the mind and remains in peace. His proximity helps to bring about such conditions in others. Otherwise, there's no meaning in seeking a sadhu's company. Excuse me. Now, the Pandit, Ramana gives the Pandit two ways to quiet thoughts. The first approach I think of as substitution, to substitute your usual thinking with other thoughts. In this case, a spiritually beneficial thought, the thought of Brahman as the vast, non-different, absolute reality in which we exist and know we exist. Substitute thoughts of Brahman for the noisy thoughts of the world. As you focus on the spiritual thought, worldly thoughts lessen and eventually subside as you dive into the non-different distinctions between this and that blur. Thoughts of the world bring rise to desires and attachments in the world. Thoughts of Brahman, the vast absolute, give rise to desires too, but these desires are to be one with Brahman. This quiets the mind since it stops looking in the world for its reality and for happiness. The second approach is through association. Association with someone who has overcome the thinking mind and who rests quietly in peace. We have a natural ability and desire for rapport with others. This is why group meditation can be deeper than meditating by yourself. You form rapport with others around you. You get in sync, and together there is deeper meditation. If you associate yourself with someone whose mind is quiet, your mind will become naturally quiet too. This happened with many people who came to see Ramana Maharshi. He said his main teaching was in silence. In this quiet silence, many would find this same quiet within themselves. This was all they needed from Ramana. It was only with those who didn't get it from the silence that dialogues were held, like the one recorded here. Outside of India, we don't find sadhus, but there are teachers with quiet minds. Or perhaps you find someone like you who practices themselves and their minds are starting to get quiet. For me, this was important. Until I met and sat with a sage, I had only my own ego ideas about how to reach past the ego. Ramana described this as sending a thief to catch a thief. So find someone to listen to, someone with whom you feel more peace and a more quiet mind. Find someone, even if it is just on YouTube. Find one. Listen, reflect, and let yourself be absorbed. This will quiet your mind. The next question was how to get rid of the I am the body idea. And let me go to the slide that has the text. I am the body is the root of all mean and selfish actions and desires. I am Brahman is passing beyond liberation.
Limitation.
And how does a grihasta, a householder, fare in the scheme of moksha, liberation? Ramana says, why do you think you are a grihasta? If you go out as a sannyasi, a similar thought that you are a sannyasi will haunt you. Whether you continue in the household or renounce it and go to the forest, your mind haunts you. The ego is the source of thoughts. It creates the body and the world and makes you think you are a grihasta. If you renounce the world, it will only substitute the thought sannyasi for grihasta and the environments of the forest for those of the household. But the mental obstacles are always there. They even increase in new surroundings. There is no help in the change of environment. The obstacle is the mind. It must be got over, whether at home or in the forest. If you can do it in the forest, why not in the home? Therefore, why change the environment? Your efforts can be made even now, in whatever environment you may be. The environment never abandons you according to your desire. Okay. Whether you think of yourself as a householder or a renunciate, the problem is thinking of yourself as this or that. It is this identification as something, this or that, instead of knowing the reality that you are, that is the problem, the limitation. So Ramana tells us to ask, who am I? One way that my teacher Nome would phrase this was, what do you consider yourself to be? Until you truly know that you are not the mind, the ideas and imaginings of the mind will limit you. If you consider yourself to be either a householder or a renunciant, either idea, either identification will limit you to the life and ideas that are part of that identity. These ideas of identity are ideas of the mind. The mind is always known, and you are the knower, not the ego I, but the self, the existence and consciousness that you are, that is deeper than the mind, that the mind seems to operate within. This self, this knowing, is always there, whether you are in your house or in the forest. Know the self, not the role with which you identify. The mind has no separate existence. Like the ornament has no existence without the gold, the mind has no existence without the self. The mind is just an appearance on the reality which you are. You don't have to be in some special place or situation to know this reality. It is always present, here and now. That's why the concern about whether you are a householder or a renunciant is off the mark. The reality is that you are neither. So any concern about either of them will not bring the inner peace you long for. Like the concern about the scales of the snake doesn't matter anymore once you know it is a rope. So know the mind is just an appearance. It has no reality of its own. It takes on the attributes of the identity you hold to, so the environment remains as long as you hold to that identity. What is real is the self that knows the mind and everything else. Know this self here and now. It is there and seen when the ideas of false identities fall away. Look within and see what is always there. Now we'll listen to my teacher Nome with a discourse beyond body, mind, and ego.
Uh-oh. Oh,
Uh-oh.
you were stuck for a minute,
Okay.
but you're not anymore.
Absolute being. What you are seeking to know, and the inquiry to know the self, consists in the falsely assumed individuality. It's that very absolute being. In worshiping God, the Supreme Lord of the universe, and the devotion or worship of the falsely supposed separate individuality, as it perpetually is. Just inquire deeply into your own true nature. In truth, for you to be a body, or a mind, or an ego entity. How could sense perceived, sporadically occurring thing called the body be you, who are of the nature and bliss? How could the attributes of a body be your attributes? Birth, active, inactive, and so forth and so on. False connection. It seems to tie together bliss with a body is ignorance. It's given up. Abandoned in the light of what troubles would you have? What veils would there be to cover who you are? Thinking may be useful, but of what use can it be in knowing the consciousness, which is the solitary knower of all the thoughts? You know, how could there possibly be a connection, a binding, that connects? Free of a mind, not defining your very existence in terms of these things. Beyond the body, the mind, and the ego. What remains is your true existence, which is what? Cease to misidentify. There is then no limit, no bondage, apart from the self. There is just oneself, yourself, natural. Every idea of being bound, idea of being limited in any way, as something distinct or apart from being conscious, is taking yourself to be an I, a mind, a body. Then once having mistaken oneself to be an I, a mind, and a body, trying to figure out what is real or how to reach the self, as if that self, the reality or God, were something far away or apart from you. False definitions of you, and that which you're as self-evident as your very existence. Yes. If the bliss, dive inwardly, deep, in this way.
All right. We'll take a few minutes for inquiry. Take a deep breath in. Feel your breathing. Take a long exhale. And notice that you exist, and you know that you exist. Without thinking about it or sensing it, you just know. Now inquire, investigate within yourself. When you quiet your thoughts, what is your identity then? Who are you with no thoughts? We play a variety of roles child, parent, worker, friend, etc.? Are any of these roles your actual identity? These roles come and go. Do you? What do you consider yourself to be? Is that who you are? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. And we'll close with a short chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. All right. Questions, comments?
So simple. Another awesome offering.
Well, thank you. It's all Nome's doing.
Indeed, these are getting better and better.
Well, I can't help it that Nome keeps improving. One of the things I've noticed, many of these talks we've listened to maybe 50 or 100 times. And what I've noticed is Nome keeps getting better the more you listen to the same talk.
Yeah.
That's like your children, when they become adults, they say, wow, you've really changed.
Yes, yes. Anyway, very good. Thank you for joining today, and namaste. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see,
Namaste.
you next week.
Hasta pronto.
So good to see you. Now, part of this association that Ramana talked about, I think is something we do with each other. We don't have
Yes.
any sadhus around, so we have to make use of our friends.
Exactly.
Right. And satsang is the word, right?
Yes,
Association with
yes.
people that have the same perspective, I guess.
Yes. Anyway, again, namaste and
Namaste.
see you next time.
Okay.